Friends, in the bright and beautiful morning sun, of course, after the terrible storm of corona pandemic, let us resume our life's journey with children, knowing that our inner strength grows in this new sun with yoga. Our Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi introduced to the world. The world stage is all set. Explore the child you meet on the way. Even at home, you will get treasures in abundance. Protect it. I quote now. We work in the sun and in the light. Even so, in our private lives, let us make friends with the sun and work in the light and do nothing secretly. And if you do so, my dear, you will grow up a child of the light, unafraid, unruffled, whatever may happen. May you grow up into a brave soldier in India's service. I unquote. Let us take this message of Pandit Nehru to his dearest daughter Indu to every child and make India a true democratic country of truth and non-violence. The world will follow. Jai Hind.
Janusz Korczak's total devotion was to children and rights of children. At the time when you're talking the turn of the 20th century, children were to be seen and not heard. His position was that children have opinions, the child has a voice, the child can express himself, and the adult needs to listen. It's a totally radical idea, but it came out of his understanding of children, because he himself was a pediatrician. So he goes and sees children. He charged the rich people a lot for their visit and nothing for poor. And he gave them medication and they physically got better. But emotionally and the way they lived and the way they were treated, they remained the same place. And he felt that that's unfair because they're human beings. They're not just creatures waiting to grow up to be adults. Janusz Koch was born in 1879 to a Jewish family in Warsaw. His name is Henryk Goldschmidt. But when you think of a Jewish family in Warsaw, you think of a long black coat and a fur hat. Not so. He was a very assimilated Jew. His whole family was assimilated. His grandfather was a physician, his father an attorney. But his father died very early, and he was very bright, obviously, so he begins to tutor children and slowly begins to write while he simultaneously is going through medical school. And he decided that Henryk Goldschmidt would not go over very big in Poland in the early 20th century. So he changed his name, and whenever he wrote, of course, it was always Janusz Korczak. He writes both children's stories, and he writes also pedagogic material, how to bring up children, how to treat with children. He's very, very critical of the idea that parents do not give sufficient emotional relationship to children. He has written a number of children's books. The most famous one is King Mat I. King Mat I is a child. He has everything. He has playgrounds, all kinds of very interesting foods, chocolate, but he's curious and wants to meet other children. And so he strikes up a relationship with a child, and together they go out. And he sees that there are no playgrounds. And so he says, wait a minute, I'm the king. I should be able to do something about it. Every child should have a playground. And so he proceeds to start putting up playgrounds. And slowly, step by step, he convinces the adults that children are people. And it's really Korczak himself, how he sees the world. In some ways, he remains a child because he believes in the good and create a good society, particularly for children. And out of this came the idea that he would like to take children that were abused, neglected, orphans, and put them into an environment where they can flourish. And of course, he accomplishes that with an orphanage in Warsaw for Jewish children, and immediately launches upon the fact that children have to be respected. So here you have children who are 3 and 5 and 12-year-olds are now being taken care of by adults. So how do you make sure that the children have rights? So what he's done is established a court system. The children voted to get judges, truly their peers, other children being 10 or 12 years old, who then look at each issue that the child has with respect to another child or with any of the caretakers, or even Janusz Korczak himself. And they would determine what's fair. And that concept of fairness permeates his whole personality. He was also on the radio. Most of Poland listened to it. But they knew that Janusz Korczak was really Henryk Goldschmidt and a Jew. And the problem became, how can a Jew possibly give advice to Polish parents? So they gave him a name, the Old Doctor. So the Old Doctor would be there on radio every single week, talking about how to bring up children. Poland was essentially a democracy. Jews were citizens. But in 1935, all this changed. The president of Poland died, and the persecution of the Jews began. So as 1935 goes to 36 and 37, more and more prejudice takes place, and in fact, Janusz Korczak is no longer on the radio. Of course, 1939 comes along and Germany occupies Poland. Eventually, the Jews go into the Warsaw Ghetto. His children must go into the ghetto. He has an opportunity not to go. Why? Because he's been given awards for literature and so on. So he's well known, and he has many, many Christian friends that say, don't go. We'll hide you, we'll smuggle you out, we'll get you to America. And he looks at them in bewilderment. He says, you are telling me to abandon my children? Would the father abandon his children? How could I? And so he goes into the ghetto with the children. He continues the educational system. He continues to publish a newspaper. It has thousands of children who write in this newspaper. He reestablishes in the ghetto the court system. Basically, he has established the Children's Republic. 1942 comes along, and the deportation of the Jews from Warsaw begins to Treblinka. One day, they find out that the children will be next. And so one of his very good friends outside of the ghetto, a Christian man, manages to get into the ghetto. But he has papers for two of them, himself and one paper as a sewer and water inspector in the ghetto by the name of Janusz Korczak, to bring him out. It's the night before the deportation of the children, and says to him, Dr. Korczak, ready to go out of here. He berates him. He says, how could you possibly ask me to do that? I should abandon my children. My children are taken from the ghetto into a cattle car. It's going to be dark in there. They're going to be scared. Who's going to comfort them? I must go with them. They get up in the morning, they get dressed in the best clothing, they're taking along their toys and books, and march through the ghetto, singing with a flag of the kingdom, King Mac the First.
An eyewitness, Yehoshua Pearl, wrote, "A miracle occurred. 200 children did not cry out. Like stricken swallows, they clung to their teacher and mentor, to their father and brother, Janusz Korczak, that he might protect and preserve them."
He carries one child, another by hand, into the cattle car. The cattle car is closed to Treblinka, and they're murdered. But what's interesting about Treblinka today, there's nothing there except 17,000 stones. Each stone is inscribed with a city, town, village, and country that the Jews came to Treblinka and were murdered. There's not a single name except for Janusz Korczak, who gave his life so that children would not be frightened. The Janusz Korczak sculpture came about through my desire to somehow honor the man who I admired greatly. Yet in the United States, very few people know about him. And the idea, or the march from the orphanage in the ghetto to the train, was a very emotional kind of thing for me. And I tried to imagine in some way, how would one show this? That the children were not screaming and crying. They were not just a ragtag, broken down group of children. And at the same time show Janusz Korczak. He is the ultimate defender of the child.
जल्दी बनाए बच्चों के लिए, और सवाल यह है कि बच्चे उसे पसंद करते हैं कि नहीं। ये थोड़ी कि मैं पसंद करता हूँ कि नहीं है? मेरा पसंद करना न करने का कोई माने ही नहीं है। बच्चे करें तो अच्छा है, बच्चे नहीं करें तो निकम्मा है। लेकिन उसमें क्या खास उसका फिल्म का हिस्सा है जो ज्यादा पसंद आया?
मुझे वो वाला अच्छा लगा हिस्सा जहाँ दुबे बस को चलाया।
अच्छा, तो दुबे बस को चलाता है तुम्हें पसंद आया? अच्छा, हाँ?
जब वो बोलता है टेबल पर आके खड़ा होकर बोलता है मम्मी और डैडी और आंटी और आंटी, वो मेरे को सीन बहुत पसंद है।
अच्छा, बात यह है कि बच्चों के फिल्म और मुल्कों में और देशों में अब अच्छे अच्छे बनने लगे, और जो बड़ों का फिल्म होता है कितना ही अच्छा हो, वो मुमकिन है बच्चों के लायक ना हो। बड़ों को पसंद हो, बच्चों को ना हो, ऊब जाए सो जाए उसको देखते देखते। इसलिए बच्चों के लिए अलग फिल्म बनानी चाहिए। अब ये जल्दी ये एक करीब करीब पहली कोशिश है बच्चों के लिए फिल्म बनाने की, और भी बनेंगे हम आशा करते हैं, उससे भी अच्छे होंगे। लेकिन हमेशा याद रखो, बच्चे का फिल्म का इम्तिहान लिया जाता है कि बच्चों को पसंद है कि नहीं। बड़ों से पूछने का कोई माने नहीं। तो खैर, हम इस नतीजे पे पहुंचे ना कि बच्चों की फिल्म बनने चाहिए हमारे देश में, हा? और दूसरी बात यह कि अच्छे फिल्म होने चाहिए, क्योंकि दूसरी दर्जे की चीज कोई हम पसंद नहीं करते अपने देश की, अव्वल दर्जे की होनी चाहिए।
आपने पहले कभी किसी पिक्चर में काम किया है?
अब कर रहा हूं कि नहीं पिक्चर? फर्ज करो तुमने चिड़ियाओं का कहा था, कितनी चिड़ियाएं हैं दुनिया में, हजारों लाखों किस्म की। कितनी चिड़ियाओं को तुम पहचानते हो? उनकी आवाज सुन के बता दो, देखो ये कोयल बोली या ये बोला ये वो बोला। हाँ, बहुत पहचाना था। फर्ज करो बताओ कि एक हम फिल्म बनाए गंगा का, गंगा जी का फिल्म बनाए, तो उसमें कितनी बातें हम बता सकते हैं। दूसरी बात लो, आसमान पे तुम इतने तारों को देखते हो, लखों खा तारे, इन तारों की कहानियां हैं, इन तारों के नाम हैं। एक दफे तुम पहचान लो वो तारे का नाम ये है, तो दोस्त हो जाता है तुम्हारा। हाँ, जैसे तुम सड़क पे चलो, बहुत भीड़ चल रही है, तुम किसी को जानो नहीं, तो भीड़ तो है लेकिन तुम अकेले हो, और तुम एकदम से देखो तुम्हारा दोस्त जा रहा है, तो फौरन देखो वो दोस्त आया। हाँ? इसी तरह से ये बड़े तारों का मजमा है ऊपर, अच्छा सुंदर लगता है, लेकिन जहां तुम उन्हें पहचानने लगो उनमें से कुछ को, तो दोस्त हो जाते हैं। खैर, तो अच्छा हो अगर बच्चों के अच्छे अच्छे फिल्म बने और बच्चे देखें। ये बाहर से फिल्म आते हैं, अक्सर अमेरिका से आते हैं और जगह से, अच्छे होते हैं, बात बड़े अच्छे होते हैं। बात ऐसे होते हैं सिवाय लड़ाई झगड़े के कुछ नहीं होते। मुझे नहीं अच्छे लगते लड़ाई झगड़े, काफी वही लड़ाई झगड़ा है उसको और फिल्म पे भी दिखाना। जरा हमें तो अब एक कोशिश करनी है कि अपना देश ऐसा बनाए और दुनिया ऐसा बनाए जिसमें लड़ाई झगड़ा ना हो, कम से कम हो, लोग मिल के रहें, काम करें, अपना भी फायदा हो, देश का भी हो। तो लड़ाई झगड़े करने से तो होता नहीं। क्या राय है तुम्हारी? हाँ, संजय की राय है कुछ कभी कभी स्याही फेंक दी जाए तो अच्छा है।